The email came at 2 a.m. just when Rachel was staring at her laptop screen, wondering how she'd pay next month's rent. The subject line was simple: unique acting opportunity, $5,000 for one evening. At first, she thought it was spam. Nobody paid that kind of money for one night of work unless something shady was involved. But desperation does funny things to people, and Rachel Chen was desperate. She'd been living in Los Angeles for 3 years now, chasing the dream of becoming an actress. The reality was more like chasing unpaid student loans and maxing out credit cards just to eat. She clicked the email. It was from something called Discreet Services Agency, and the message was professional, almost too professional. They wanted to meet her the next day at a coffee shop in West Hollywood. No details about the job, just a promise that it was legal and a request to come alone. Rachel's gut told her to delete it, but her bank account told her to at least hear them out. The next afternoon, she found herself sitting across from a woman who looked like she'd walked out of a fashion magazine. Designer sunglasses, perfect hair, and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The woman introduced herself as Vanessa and got straight to the point. "I need you to ruin a date," Vanessa said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. Rachel blinked. "Excuse me?" "A blind date, to be specific. There's a man who deserves to be taught a lesson. His name is Alexander Hunt. His sister set him up on a blind date next Friday at the Ivy. I need you to show up pretending to be his date and make the evening absolutely miserable for him." Rachel should have walked away right then. Every fiber of her being knew this was wrong. But Vanessa kept talking, and the number kept getting bigger in Rachel's mind. $5,000. That was 3 months of rent. That was her student loan payment. That was the difference between staying in LA and moving back to her hometown with her tail between her legs. "Why?" Rachel asked, trying to understand what kind of person pays someone to ruin a date. Vanessa's expression hardened. "Because he humiliated me. We dated for 8 months, and he chose his precious daughter over our relationship. He made me feel like I wasn't good enough, like I'd always come second. I just want him to feel uncomfortable for one evening. That's all." Something about the way Vanessa said it made Rachel's stomach turn, but she was already doing the math in her head. One evening. A few hours of acting ridiculous. Then she'd take the money and never think about it again. What exactly would I have to do? Rachel heard herself asking. Vanessa pulled out a folder with photos and information. Alexander Hunt was 36 years old, the CEO of some tech company Rachel had never heard of. In the photos, he looked normal. Actually, he looked kind. Warm brown eyes, a genuine smile in the few pictures where he wasn't in a suit. There were photos of him with a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with pigtails and a gap-toothed grin. His daughter? Rachel asked. Lily, she's 7. His wife died 3 years ago in a car accident. He's been playing the devoted single father ever since, using it as an excuse to avoid commitment. Rachel felt her chest tighten. A widower with a young daughter. This wasn't just some jerk who'd ghosted someone. This was a man who'd lost his wife and was raising a child alone. "I don't know," Rachel started, but Vanessa cut her off. $7,000. That's my final offer. $3,000 up front, 4 when it's done. All you have to do is show up, be obnoxious, embarrass him a little, and leave. His ego could use the hit, trust me. $7,000. Rachel thought about the eviction notice she'd received last week. She thought about her mother back home, working 2 jobs at 63 years old because Rachel couldn't help her. She thought about the casting call she'd missed because she couldn't afford gas to drive there. "I'll do it," she whispered, hating herself already. The next week passed in a blur of guilt and preparation. Vanessa had given her detailed instructions. She'd hack into Alexander's sister's email and cancel the original date, then send a message from a fake account confirming Jessica would be there. Rachel would play Jessica. Loud, inappropriate, attention-seeking Jessica who would make Alexander's evening a nightmare. She practiced her character in front of the mirror. Laughing too loud. Talking with her mouth full. Making inappropriate jokes. Everything that would make a first date uncomfortable. But every time she rehearsed, she saw the photo of that little girl with pigtails and felt sick. Friday came too quickly. Rachel put on a tight red dress that Vanessa had sent over. "Nothing says disaster date like trying too hard," Vanessa had texted, and took an Uber to the Ivy. Her hands were shaking as she walked in, and she almost turned around 3 times before reaching the hostess stand. "Reservation for Hunt," she said, her voice barely steady. The hostess smiled and led her to a table near the window. Rachel sat down, ordered a water, and waited. She checked her phone obsessively. There was a text from Vanessa. "Remember, you're doing this because you need the money. Don't chicken out now." Then she saw him walking in and her heart did something unexpected. He looked exactly like his photos, but somehow more real. He wasn't wearing a fancy suit like she'd expected. Just nice jeans and a button-down shirt, like he was trying not to look like he was trying. His hair was slightly messy, and he kept tugging at his collar like he was nervous. When he spotted her and smiled, Rachel almost forgot her entire plan. His smile was genuinely kind, the kind that reached his eyes and made you want to smile back. He walked over and she noticed he was carrying a small bouquet of daisies. "Jessica?" he asked, and his voice was warm, a little uncertain. "That's me," Rachel lied, standing up to shake his hand. He handed her the flowers and she noticed his hands were actually trembling. "I'm Alexander. I have to be honest, I'm terrible at this. I haven't been on a date in, well, a really long time." He laughed nervously as they both sat down. "My sister practically had to drag me here, but I'm glad I came." "You look lovely." Rachel felt something crack inside her chest. He was nervous. He was sweet. He'd brought flowers. This wasn't some arrogant CEO who needed to be taken down a peg. This was just a regular guy who was scared of dating again, but she had a job to do. $7,000. She couldn't forget that. She launched into her character, laughing way too loud at her own joke about the menu. She noticed Alexander flinch slightly but then smile anyway. When the waiter came, she ordered 3 appetizers and the most expensive wine without asking what he wanted. "Wow. You know what you like," Alexander said. And there was no judgment in his voice, just mild surprise. "Life's too short to pretend you're not hungry," Rachel said, channeling every obnoxious character she'd ever played in acting class. But then Alexander did something she didn't expect. He laughed. Really laughed, like what she'd said was actually funny instead of rude. "You know what? You're absolutely right. I spend so much time in business meetings pretending to enjoy tiny portions of food I can't pronounce. This is refreshing." Rachel felt her carefully constructed plan starting to wobble. He was supposed to be uncomfortable. He was supposed to make an excuse and leave. Instead, he seemed relaxed. She tried again. When the wine came, she talked loudly about a completely made-up story involving her ex-boyfriend and a karaoke bar. She knocked over her water glass accidentally and made a big scene. Alexander just helped clean it up and told the waiter not to worry about it. "My daughter spills something at every meal," he said with a grin. "I'm basically a professional at cleanup duty now." And just like that, he'd opened a door Rachel hadn't expected. He started talking about his daughter, Lily, how she'd just lost her first tooth and was convinced the tooth fairy was going to make her rich. How she'd started taking piano lessons and played the same 3 notes over and over, until he thought he'd lose his mind. But he loved it anyway because she was so proud of herself. His whole face changed when he talked about her. The CEO disappeared and there was just a dad who loved his kid more than anything in the world. "She's actually why I'm here," Alexander admitted, looking a little embarrassed. "She asked me last month why I was always alone. She said her friend Mia's dad had a girlfriend and it made him smile more. Then she asked if I could find someone to make me happy again." He paused, his voice getting quieter. "How do you say no to that?" Rachel felt her throat get tight. She picked up her wine glass to buy time, to hide the fact that her eyes were stinging with tears. This was supposed to be a job, an acting gig, easy money. But sitting across from this man who was so clearly still grieving his wife, while trying to be everything his daughter needed, she felt like the worst person in the world. "That's really sweet," she managed to say, and for the first time that evening she wasn't acting. "I'm sorry. I'm probably oversharing," Alexander said quickly. "First date rule number 1. Don't talk about your kid the whole time. My sister specifically warned me about that." "No, it's okay. It's actually really nice. A lot of guys wouldn't even mention having a kid until date 3 or 4. I can't imagine not mentioning Lily. She's pretty much my whole world." He smiled softly. "What about you? Any kids?" Rachel shook her head. "No, just me. Well, me and my mom back in Seattle. She raised me by herself, so I guess I know a little about the single-parent thing from the other side." She hadn't planned to say that. It wasn't part of the script Vanessa had given her. But it was true, and somehow sitting across from Alexander made her want to tell the truth about something, even if everything else was a lie. They talked through dinner, and Rachel kept forgetting she was supposed to be sabotaging the evening. Alexander asked about her life in LA. and she found herself telling him real stories. About her struggles as an actress, about the rejection, about the tiny apartment she shared with two roommates who she barely knew. She left out the part about the eviction notice and the reason she was sitting there, but everything else was honest. When dessert came, Alexander did something that surprised her again. He ordered 2 spoons with his chocolate cake without asking, just assumed they'd share. It was such a small thing, but it felt intimate in a way that made Rachel's chest hurt. "I have to confess something," Alexander said as they split the cake. "When my sister first suggested this, I was going to cancel 3 different times. I told myself I wasn't ready, that it was too soon, that Lily needed me to focus on her. But sitting here with you, I'm really glad I didn't cancel. You're easy to talk to. You don't feel like a stranger." Rachel set down her fork because her hand was shaking. "Alexander, I know this might be forward, but would you want to do this again? Maybe next weekend? There's this art exhibit Lily's school is doing, and I promised her I'd go. It would be nice to have company. Only if you want to, no pressure." He was asking her on a second date, a date that included meeting his daughter. Rachel felt like she couldn't breathe. "I need to think about it," she said, which wasn't a no, but wasn't the yes she found herself wanting to say. "Of course, absolutely. No rush." Alexander smiled and signaled for the check. "I really did have a great time tonight, Jessica." Every time he said that name, Rachel felt a fresh wave of guilt. She wasn't Jessica. She was Rachel, and she'd been paid to ruin this evening. Except she hadn't ruined anything. If anything, she'd made it better. And now everything was so much more complicated. They walked out of the restaurant together, and Alexander offered to wait with her for her Uber. They stood on the sidewalk, and for a moment the city noise faded away. It was just the two of them in the glow of the streetlights. "Thank you for tonight," Alexander said softly. "I forgot what this felt like. Feeling like a person instead of just a dad or a CEO, you reminded me." Then he did something that made Rachel's heart stop. He leaned in, gentle and slow, giving her plenty of time to move away. But she didn't move away. She let him kiss her, soft and sweet on a Los Angeles sidewalk, and for those few seconds she forgot about Vanessa and the money and the lies. She was just a girl kissing a guy she really liked. When they pulled apart, Alexander was smiling. "I'll text you about next weekend?" Rachel nodded, not trusting her voice. She got in her Uber, and as it pulled away, she looked back to see him still standing there, watching her go with that gentle smile on his face. Her phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Well, did you destroy him?" Rachel stared at the message, then at the restaurant disappearing behind her. She'd been paid to ruin Alexander Hunt's evening. Instead, she'd spent one of the best nights of her life. And now she was in serious trouble because she'd done the one thing she absolutely couldn't afford to do. She'd started to fall for him. Rachel didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the evening. The way Alexander's eyes crinkled when he smiled. The nervous way he'd tugged at his collar. That kiss that she could still feel on her lips hours later. And then there was Vanessa's text, sitting unanswered on her phone like a ticking bomb. By morning, she'd made a decision. She'd text Alexander and tell him she couldn't see him again. She'd make up some excuse, take the money, and forget this ever happened. It was the only way to fix this mess before it got worse. But then her phone rang. It was Alexander. "Hey, I know it's early." His voice was warm and a little sheepish. "I couldn't stop thinking about last night. I wanted to make sure I didn't dream the whole thing." Rachel's carefully planned rejection speech died in her throat. "No, it was real. Good, that's really good." She could hear the smile in his voice. "So I know I mentioned the art exhibit next weekend, but I was wondering if maybe you'd want to grab coffee this week. Wednesday, maybe? I promised to talk about something other than my daughter this time." Rachel knew what she should say. She opened her mouth to say it. But what came out was, "Wednesday sounds perfect." After they hung up, she stared at her phone in disbelief. What was she doing? This was supposed to be over. One night, that was the deal. But here she was agreeing to a second date with a man she'd been paid to hurt. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Vanessa. "I want a full report. Come to my office today at 2 p.m. Rachel's stomach dropped. She'd almost forgotten about Vanessa in the chaos of her own feelings. She showed up at the address Vanessa had given her, a sleek office building in Century City. Vanessa's office was all glass and white furniture, cold and impersonal. So, Vanessa leaned back in her designer chair, looking at Rachel expectantly. How bad was it? Did he leave early? Please tell me he was mortified. Rachel shifted uncomfortably. It didn't exactly go as planned. What do you mean? He was really nice. He didn't react the way you said he would. When I tried to embarrass him, he just laughed it off. He actually seemed to enjoy himself. Vanessa's expression darkened. You're telling me you failed? I'm telling you that maybe this whole thing is a bad idea. He's a good guy, Vanessa. He's just trying to move on from losing his wife. I don't think he deserves— I don't pay you to think, Vanessa cut her off sharply. I pay you to do a job. And clearly you need to try harder. She pulled out her phone and started typing. I'm transferring you another $2,000. Consider it a bonus for continued work. You're going to keep seeing him, and you're going to break his heart properly. Make him fall for you, then crush him. That's what he did to me. That's not what this was supposed to be, Rachel protested. You said one date. Plans change. You want the money or not? Rachel thought about her eviction notice, about her mother's medical bills that were piling up, about the electricity bill she'd been dodging for weeks. She hated herself, but she nodded. Good. Keep me updated after every date. I want details. Vanessa's smile was cold. And Rachel? Don't get attached. Men like Alexander Hunt don't end up with girls like you. You're just entertainment for him until someone from his world comes along. Those words stung more than Rachel wanted to admit. She left the office feeling dirty, like she needed a shower. But Wednesday still came, and she still showed up at the coffee shop where Alexander was waiting. He'd gotten there early and already ordered her a latte. I took a guess. If it's wrong, I'll get you something else. It's perfect, Rachel said, and it was. He'd somehow guessed exactly how she liked her coffee. They sat outside in the California sunshine, and Alexander seemed more relaxed than he'd been at dinner. He told her about his company, how he'd started it in his garage 10 years ago with his best friend David, how they'd nearly gone bankrupt 3 times before finally making it work. Most people assume I was born rich, he said, stirring his black coffee. But my dad was a mechanic and my mom was a teacher. Everything I have, I built. Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life. Rachel found herself genuinely interested in his story. The way he talked about his struggles made him more real, more human. He wasn't just some wealthy CEO from a magazine. He was a person who'd worked hard and gotten lucky and was still figuring things out. What about you? Alexander asked. What made you want to be an actress? For the second time, Rachel found herself telling the truth. She told him about growing up in a small town in Washington, watching old movies with her mom, how her mom would work double shifts so Rachel could take acting classes, how she'd promised herself she'd make it big and take care of her mom the way her mom had taken care of her. But it's harder than I thought, Rachel admitted, surprised by her own honesty. I've been here 3 years and I've booked exactly 2 commercials and 1 line in a TV show that got cut in editing. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just kidding myself. Alexander reached across the table and touched her hand gently. Hey, 3 years is nothing. You know how long it took my company to turn a profit? 5 years. I wanted to quit every single day, but David kept telling me that the only way to definitely fail was to stop trying. Something about the way he said it with such genuine belief made Rachel want to cry. When was the last time someone had encouraged her dreams instead of telling her to be realistic? They talked for 2 hours, and Rachel forgot to check her phone once. She forgot about Vanessa and the money and the lies. She was just a girl having coffee with a guy who made her feel like maybe she wasn't crazy for chasing her dreams. As they were leaving, Alexander hesitated. So, about this weekend. The art thing at Lily's school. I know meeting my daughter is probably too much too soon. We can do something else if you want. Rachel should have said yes. She should have suggested anything else. But instead she heard herself say, I'd love to meet Lily. The look on Alexander's face made her chest ache. Pure joy, mixed with relief and maybe a little fear. Really, you're sure? I'm sure. He hugged her right there on the sidewalk, and Rachel let herself sink into it for just a moment. He smelled like coffee and cologne and something warm she couldn't name. When he pulled back, he was grinning like a teenager. She's going to love you, he said. I know it. That Saturday, Rachel met Alexander at Lily's elementary school. She'd changed her outfit 5 times, trying to find something that said, appropriate person to meet a 7-year-old without looking like she was trying too hard. She settled on jeans and a soft blue sweater. Alexander was waiting outside with a little girl who had her father's brown eyes and dark hair in 2 braids. The moment Lily saw her dad, she ran over and jumped into his arms. "Daddy, you came early. Mrs. Peterson said my painting might win a prize." "That's because you're the best artist in the whole school," Alexander said, kissing her forehead before setting her down. "Lily, I want you to meet my friend Jessica. She's going to look at all the art with us." Lily turned to Rachel with an evaluating look that was surprisingly serious for someone so young. "Hi, Daddy said you're an actress. Have you been in anything I've seen?" Rachel laughed. "Probably not. I mostly audition and hope someone picks me." "That sounds hard," Lily said matter-of-factly. "But Daddy says hard things are worth doing. Come on, I'll show you my painting first." She grabbed Rachel's hand with the unself-conscious trust of a child, and Rachel felt something crack in her chest. Lily's hand was so small and warm, and she was pulling Rachel through the school hallway, chattering about her art project like they'd known each other forever. The painting was of a house with 3 people in front of it. A tall figure, a small figure, and a medium-sized figure with yellow hair. "That's me and Daddy and you," Lily explained, pointing at each figure. "I painted it before I met you, so I had to guess what you looked like." "I got your hair right." Rachel stared at the painting, unable to speak. Before she'd even met Lily, this little girl had painted her into their family. Alexander put his hand on Rachel's back gently, and she could feel him watching her reaction. "It's beautiful, Lily," Rachel managed to say. "I love it." They walked through the art exhibit, Lily providing commentary on every single piece. She was funny and smart and occasionally bossy, ordering her dad around like a tiny CEO. Alexander just smiled and went along with whatever she wanted, clearly wrapped around her little finger. At one point, Lily ran ahead to show them something, and Alexander leaned close to Rachel. "Thank you for this. She hasn't been this excited about anything in months. You're good with her." "She makes it easy," Rachel said, and it was true. There was something about Lily that made Rachel's heart expand. Maybe it was because she reminded Rachel of herself at that age. Or maybe it was just that kids have a way of cutting through all the complicated adult stuff and just being real. After the exhibit, Alexander suggested ice cream. They sat at a picnic table outside the shop, Lily working on a cone that was definitely too big for her, getting chocolate all over her face. She told Rachel about her piano lessons, about her best friend at school, about the tooth fairy who'd left her $2 whole. "Daddy says Mommy watches me from heaven," Lily said suddenly, and Rachel felt Alexander tense beside her. "Do you think she can see me right now?" Rachel glanced at Alexander, unsure how to handle this, but he gave her a small nod like it was okay to answer. "I think if your mommy loved you, she finds a way to watch over you," Rachel said carefully, "and I bet she's really proud of you." Lily considered this seriously. "I hope so. Daddy gets sad sometimes when he looks at her pictures, but he's been smiling more since he met you." "That's good, right?" "That's very good," Rachel said, her throat tight. Later, after they dropped Lily back at Alexander's sister's house, "Aunt Patricia's teaching me to bake cookies," Lily had announced excitedly. Alexander walked Rachel to her car. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I'm sorry if Lily put you on the spot with the mom question," Alexander said. "She's been asking about her more lately. Her therapist says it's normal, that she's trying to make sense of it all." "She's in therapy?" Rachel asked gently. Alexander nodded. "We both are. After the accident, I kind of fell apart for a while. My sister practically moved in to take care of Lily. I couldn't get out of bed some days. I felt like I'd failed at the one job that mattered, which was keeping my family safe." He paused, looking out at the sunset. "The therapy helped. Helped me understand that I can't protect her from everything, but I can show up and be present and love her the best I can." Rachel felt tears burning in her eyes. Here was this man, being so honest about his pain, his struggles, his imperfections. How was she supposed to hurt him? How could Vanessa have ever thought he deserved to suffer? "You're a really good dad," Rachel said softly. "Lily's lucky to have you." Alexander turned to her, and there was something in his eyes that made Rachel's breath catch. "I haven't felt this hopeful in a long time. You've done something to me, Jessica, something I didn't think was possible anymore. I'm starting to believe that maybe I can be more than just Lily's dad. Maybe I can be someone's partner again." He kissed her then, more deeply than before, and Rachel kissed him back even though she knew she shouldn't. When they pulled apart, he was smiling. 3 weeks, he said. "I've known you for 3 weeks and I already can't imagine my life without you in it." Is that crazy? Maybe a little, Rachel whispered, because it was crazy. Everything about this was crazy. Good, I like being crazy about you. After he left, Rachel sat in her car for a long time, her head resting on the steering wheel. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Vanessa. Progress report now. Rachel looked at the message, then at the school where they'd just been, where a little girl had painted her into their family before they'd even met. She thought about Alexander's kiss, his honesty, his hope. She thought about Lily's hand in hers, and the way the little girl had smiled when Rachel complimented her painting. She was in so deep now that she couldn't see the surface anymore. Every time she tried to pull away, something pulled her back in. Alexander's kindness, Lily's innocence, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she'd found something real in the middle of all these lies. Rachel typed out a reply to Vanessa. He's falling for me. Give me more time. What she didn't say, what she couldn't admit even to herself yet, was that she was falling too, and when this all came crashing down, because it would, she knew it would. She wasn't sure any of them would survive it intact. She drove home through the LA traffic, and for the first time since this whole mess started, Rachel let herself cry. Not sad tears exactly, but something more complicated. Tears for the person she used to be before she took this job. Tears for the hurt she was going to cause. And tears for the life she could almost see. The one with Alexander and Lily and Sunday mornings and art exhibits and ice cream cones. The life that could never really be hers because it was all built on a foundation of lies. Her phone buzzed one more time. A text from Alexander. Lily wants to know if you can come to her piano recital next month. No pressure. But she already told her teacher that her dad's girlfriend would be there. Hope that's okay, girlfriend. The word sat on her screen, heavy with meaning and possibility and danger. Rachel stared at it until her eyes blurred. And then she did the one thing she absolutely should not have done. She typed back, I wouldn't miss it for the world. The next 4 weeks blurred together in a way that terrified Rachel. Every moment with Alexander and Lily felt like stepping deeper into quicksand. She knew she should pull away, but instead she kept sinking, and the worst part was how good it felt to drown. Alexander invited her to Sunday dinners. Lily's bedtime stories. Movie nights where Lily would fall asleep between them on the couch, her little head on Rachel's shoulder. Rachel learned that Alexander couldn't cook to save his life, that Lily was afraid of thunderstorms, that they had a tradition of making pancakes shaped like animals every Saturday morning. She was becoming part of their rhythm, their routine, their family, and every single day it got harder to remember why she'd started this in the first place. You're glowing, her roommate Mika said one morning, watching Rachel get ready for another date. I haven't seen you this happy since you moved to LA. This Alexander guy must be something special. He is, Rachel said softly, and the truth of it hit her like a punch to the gut. He was special. They both were, and she was going to destroy them. Her phone rang. It was Vanessa, and Rachel's stomach immediately twisted into knots. She'd been avoiding Vanessa's calls for 2 weeks now, sending brief text updates instead. But Vanessa was getting impatient. We need to talk, Vanessa said without greeting. In person. Today. I'm busy today, I don't care. Be at my office at 3 or I'm calling Alexander myself and telling him everything. The line went dead. Rachel stared at her phone, her hands shaking. This was it, the moment she'd been dreading. She couldn't avoid Vanessa forever, and now she was out of time. She showed up at Vanessa's office at 3 sharp, her stomach in knots. Vanessa looked even more polished than usual, if that was possible. Everything about her screamed money and control. Sit, Vanessa commanded, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Let's talk about what you've been doing with my money. I've been doing exactly what you asked, Rachel said, trying to keep her voice steady. He's falling for me. It's working, is it? Because from what I can see on his social media, he looks happier than he's been in years. That's not what I'm paying you for. Rachel's heart sank. She'd forgotten about social media. Alexander had posted a photo last week of the 3 of them at the beach. Lily building a sandcastle while Rachel and Alexander laughed in the background. She'd looked so happy in that photo. They all had. You said you wanted him to fall for me first, Rachel tried, before I could hurt him. That's what I'm doing. Vanessa leaned forward, her eyes cold. Don't play games with me. I can see what's happening here. You're actually falling for him, aren't you? No, don't lie. I've seen the way you look at him in these photos. I've read your pathetic little updates. He's so good with Lily. He opened up about his wife today. You sound like a lovesick teenager." Vanessa's voice dripped with contempt. "Let me remind you of something, Rachel. You're a struggling actress who can barely pay rent. He's a millionaire CEO. You really think this ends with you playing house forever? You're a novelty to him. Once he gets bored, he'll move on to someone from his own world, someone who didn't have to be paid to sit across from him at dinner." Each word was designed to hurt, and it worked. Rachel felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Not in front of Vanessa. I'm giving you 1 month," Vanessa continued. "There's a charity gala at the end of next month. Alexander's company is one of the main sponsors. He'll be giving a speech. I want you to destroy him there. Publicly. Make him look like a fool in front of everyone who matters to him. Then walk away and never contact him again. Do that, and I'll give you another $10,000 on top of what you've already been paid. That's $17,000 total. Enough to solve all your problems. And if I don't," Rachel asked quietly, "then I tell him everything. About the money, about me, about how you were hired to ruin his life. How do you think he'll feel when he knows the woman he's falling in love with was paid to be there? How do you think his daughter will feel when he explains why Jessica disappeared?" Vanessa smiled cruelly. "At least if you do it my way, you walk away with enough money to start over somewhere else. Your choice." Rachel left the office feeling numb. $17,000. It was more money than she'd ever had at once. It would solve everything, the rent, the loans, her mother's medical bills. She could leave LA, start fresh somewhere else, maybe go back to school, find a normal job, live a normal life. But it would cost her Alexander, and Lily, and the version of herself she'd become over the past month. The one who laughed easily and believed in good things and felt like maybe she deserved to be happy. She was supposed to meet Alexander for lunch, but she couldn't face him. Not yet. She texted him that she wasn't feeling well, which wasn't exactly a lie. She felt sick to her stomach. Alexander called instead of texting back. "Hey, what's wrong?"
Do you need anything?
"I can bring you soup. Or medicine. Or just come sit with you if you want company." His immediate concern made her want to cry. "I'm okay. Just need to rest." "Okay, but call me if you need anything, okay? Anything at all." He paused. "Lily made you a card at school today. She wanted to give it to you at lunch. I'll save it for when you're feeling better." After they hung up, Rachel did cry. She cried in her car in the parking lot of Vanessa's building. Great heaving sobs that came from somewhere deep inside her. She'd made such a mess of everything. There was no way out that didn't end in someone getting hurt. Over the next 2 weeks, Rachel tried to act normal around Alexander and Lily, but it was getting harder. Every time Alexander touched her hand or Lily hugged her goodbye, she felt the weight of what she was going to have to do. Alexander noticed something was wrong. Of course he did. He was too observant, too caring to miss the change in her. "Hey, talk to me," he said one evening after Lily had gone to bed. They were sitting on his couch, the space between them feeling bigger than it should. "You've been distant lately. Did I do something wrong?" "No, you didn't do anything wrong. You're perfect. That's the problem." The words came out before she could stop them. Alexander looked confused. "I don't understand. How is me being good a problem?" Rachel wanted to tell him everything right then. She wanted to confess the whole horrible truth and beg for forgiveness. But Vanessa's threat echoed in her mind. If she told him herself, at least she'd have some control over how he found out. But would that really be better? Would it hurt less? "I'm just scared," Rachel said finally, which was true enough. "This is all moving so fast. Your life, your daughter, your world, it's so different from mine. Sometimes I worry that I don't fit." Alexander moved closer, taking her hands in his. "Jessica, look at me. I know my life probably seems complicated from the outside. The money, the business, the responsibilities. But underneath all that, I'm just a guy who's scared of messing this up. You fit perfectly into my life, into Lily's life, better than I ever imagined anyone could." He pulled out his phone and showed her something, a note app with a list. "You want to know what I was doing when we first matched? I was making a list of all the reasons I shouldn't go on that date." It had 23 things on it. Fear of getting hurt again was number 1. Lily getting attached to someone who might leave was number 2. Not being ready was number 3. He scrolled down. "Want to know what I did after our first date?" Rachel nodded, not trusting her voice. "I made a new list. 23 reasons why I was glad I went. and every single one of them was about you." He looked at her with those warm brown eyes that made her feel like she was the only person in the world. "You're not someone who doesn't fit. You're the piece I didn't know was missing." Rachel felt something break inside her chest. She kissed him then, desperate and sad and full of all the things she couldn't say. When they pulled apart, Alexander was smiling softly. "Whatever you're scared of, we'll figure it out together, okay?" "Okay," Rachel whispered, knowing it was a lie. The next day, she met Alexander's best friend and business partner, David, for the first time. Alexander had invited her to lunch at a restaurant downtown, and David was already there when they arrived. David was tall, with dark skin and an easy smile that reminded Rachel of Alexander's, but his eyes were sharper, more assessing. He looked at Rachel like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "So you're the famous Jessica," David said, shaking her hand. "Alex hasn't shut up about you for weeks. I was starting to think you were too good to be true." There was something in the way he said it that made Rachel nervous. Like he was testing her. Lunch was pleasant enough. David told funny stories about the early days of their company, like the time they'd had to pitch investors while sitting in camping chairs because they couldn't afford real furniture. Alexander jumped in with his own stories, and they played off each other like they'd been friends forever. But Rachel kept catching David watching her. Not in a creepy way, just observant, like he was studying her reactions, measuring her authenticity. After lunch, Alexander got a phone call and stepped outside. David turned to Rachel, his smile fading. "I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me," he said quietly. "Are you for real?" Rachel's heart started pounding. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Alexander is my brother. Not by blood, but in every way that matters. He's been through hell these past few years. Losing Jennifer nearly destroyed him. It took him 2 years to even smile again. Then he met you, and suddenly he's the guy I remember from before, happy, hopeful." David leaned forward. "I need to know that you're not going to break his heart. Because if you do, I don't think he'll survive it. And Lily definitely won't." Rachel felt like she couldn't breathe. "I would never want to hurt them. That's not what I asked. I asked if you're for real. Because something doesn't add up. The way you appeared out of nowhere at the exact right time. The way you seem almost too perfect for him. I've seen Alexander fall for people before. It never happened this fast." "Sometimes things just click," Rachel said, trying to keep her voice steady. David studied her for a long moment. "I hope you're right. Because I did some basic checking. Just a background thing, nothing invasive. And you know what's weird? For someone who's been in LA for 3 years, you have almost no digital footprint, no social media presence, no record of auditions or bookings beyond what you told Alexander. It's like you barely exist." Rachel's blood ran cold. "I'm private. Not everyone lives their life online." "True, but actors usually do, don't they? It's part of the job. Building a brand, getting noticed?" David smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Maybe I'm just being paranoid. Alex says I'm overprotective. But I love him and Lily too much to ignore my instincts. So I'm watching, just so you know." Alexander came back before Rachel could respond, smiling and oblivious to the tension. "Sorry about that. Crisis at the office, but it's handled. We still on for the museum tomorrow, Jessica?" "Yeah, absolutely," Rachel managed. As they left the restaurant, Rachel's mind was racing. David suspected something. He didn't know what, but he was looking. And if he dug any deeper, if he found the connection to Vanessa or discovered that Jessica wasn't even her real name, everything would fall apart even faster than she'd feared. That night, Rachel couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about David's words, about Vanessa's ultimatum, about Alexander's list of 23 reasons he was glad he'd met her, about Lily's painting with 3 people in front of a house. She pulled out her laptop and looked at her bank account. Vanessa had transferred the money over the past weeks. $7,000 sat there, more than Rachel had seen in years. Blood money. That's what it was. Money she'd earned by lying to people who trusted her. Rachel opened a new browser window and searched for Alexander's charity gala. It was in 3 weeks, the biggest event of the year for his company, with press coverage and important investors. If she humiliated him there like Vanessa wanted, it wouldn't just break his heart. It would damage his professional reputation, his company, everything he'd built. And Lily would see it all eventually. Kids found things online. Someday Lily would be old enough to search for her father's name and find articles about how he'd been publicly humiliated by a woman he'd trusted. How would that shape her view of relationships, of trust, of love? Rachel closed her laptop and pulled her knees to her chest. She'd thought she could handle this. Take the money, do the job, move on. But she hadn't counted on Alexander being so genuinely kind. She hadn't counted on Lily painting her into their family before they'd even met. She hadn't counted on falling in love, because that's what this was, she realized with sudden clarity. She loved Alexander. She loved his patience and his terrible cooking and the way he looked at his daughter like she hung the moon. She loved how he'd rebuilt himself after tragedy and somehow still had enough heart left over to let someone new in. And she loved Lily. Loved her gap-toothed smile and her bossy demands and the way she held Rachel's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. Rachel loved them both, and that love was going to destroy everything. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. Can't sleep. Thinking about you, about us, about how lucky I am. Sweet dreams, beautiful. Rachel stared at the message until tears blurred the words. She typed and deleted 5 different responses before finally settling on sweet dreams. 3 weeks. She had 3 weeks to figure out how to fix the unfixable. 3 weeks to find a way to save Alexander and Lily from the bomb she'd planted in their lives. 3 weeks to become someone worthy of the love they were offering her. But as she finally drifted off to sleep, Rachel had the sinking feeling that 3 weeks wouldn't be nearly enough time. Some messes were too big to clean up. Some lies were too deep to dig your way out of. And some mistakes, no matter how much you regretted them, couldn't be undone. The clock was ticking, and Rachel had no idea how to stop it. The charity gala was in 1 week, and Rachel felt like she was walking toward her own execution. Every morning she woke up thinking today would be the day she'd tell Alexander the truth. Every night she went to bed having chickened out again. She tried to distance herself, to prepare them for her disappearance. She started saying no to some invitations, claiming work conflicts. But Alexander just worked around her schedule, showing up at her apartment with takeout or asking if he could see her even just for an hour. I miss you, he said one evening, standing in her doorway with Thai food and that smile that made her heart hurt. Even when I just saw you yesterday, I miss you. Is that crazy? A little, Rachel said. But she let him in because she was weak and selfish and not ready to let go yet. They ate on her worn couch in her tiny apartment that she shared with 2 roommates who were thankfully out for the night. Alexander looked around with genuine interest, not judgment, at her thrift store furniture and peeling paint. I like it here, he said. It feels real. My house is nice, but sometimes it feels like a museum. Too perfect. This feels lived in. That's a polite way of saying it's a mess, Rachel laughed. No, I mean it. My first apartment looked like this. Actually, it was worse. David and I shared a 1-bedroom and took turns sleeping on the couch. We ate ramen for 6 months straight because we were dumping every penny into the business. He smiled at the memory. Jennifer used to say those were the best years, when we had nothing but each other and a dream. It was the first time he'd brought up his late wife without Rachel asking. She'd learned not to push, to let him share when he was ready. Tell me about her, Rachel said softly, if you want to. Alexander was quiet for a moment, playing with his food. She was my college sweetheart. We met in a computer science class, and she was the only person who could keep up with me. Smarter than me, actually, though she'd never admit it. His voice got softer. She wanted to work with me, build the company together. But then she got pregnant with Lily, and she decided to stay home. Said she didn't want to miss a single moment of watching our daughter grow up. Rachel saw his eyes getting wet, and her heart broke for him. She was right. Those moments were everything. The first word, the first step, all of it. She was there for everything, and I was working 80-hour weeks like an idiot, thinking I was building a future for them. Then one night she went to pick up dinner and a drunk driver ran a red light. He wiped his eyes roughly. I would give every penny I've ever made to have her back. To tell her I was sorry for all the dinners I missed, all the bedtimes I skipped. To tell her she was right about what mattered. Rachel reached for his hand and he held on tight. Lily was 4, old enough to understand that Mommy wasn't coming back, but not old enough to understand why. She'd set a place for Jennifer at dinner for months. We had to go to therapy together, and the therapist said I needed to let myself grieve. But how could I fall apart when Lily needed me to hold it together? He looked at Rachel. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand something. When Jennifer died, I thought that was it for me. One great love, one lifetime. I never expected to feel anything like this again. Like what? Rachel whispered, like hope. Like maybe I get a second chance at happiness. Like maybe Lily gets to have someone in her life who sees her the way Jennifer did. Like she's the most amazing person in the world. He cupped Rachel's face gently. You gave me that, both of us. And I know it's fast and maybe it's too much too soon. But I'm falling in love with you, Jessica. Actually, I think I'm already there. Rachel felt like she couldn't breathe. This was the moment. She had to tell him. She couldn't let him say these things, feel these things, when it was all built on lies. Alexander, I need to tell you something. His phone rang, cutting her off. He glanced at it and grimaced. It's Lily's school. I'm so sorry I have to take this. He stepped into her tiny kitchen and Rachel could hear his concern as he talked to what sounded like the school nurse. When he came back, he looked worried. Lily fell on the playground. They think she might have broken her wrist. I have to go to the hospital. He was already grabbing his jacket. I'm sorry, I'm coming with you, Rachel said. Not even thinking about it. You don't have to. I want to. They drove to the hospital together, Alexander gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white. Rachel put her hand on his arm and he seemed to relax just slightly. She's going to be okay, Rachel said. Kids bounce back fast, I know. I just hate that she's scared and I'm not there yet. At the hospital, they found Lily in the emergency room with Alexander's sister, Patricia. Lily's face was streaked with tears, her right wrist already swelling. Daddy! She burst into fresh tears when she saw him and Alexander scooped her up with his good arm, careful of the injured one. I've got you, baby girl. You're so brave. The doctors are going to fix you right up. It hurts. Lily sobbed into his shoulder. I know, sweetheart. I know. Then Lily spotted Rachel and reached for her too. Jessica, I was so scared. Rachel moved closer, smoothing Lily's hair back. But you were brave. Your dad told me you didn't even cry until you got here. The playground lady said I was very strong, Lily sniffled. But then I saw the bone was all wrong and I got scared. Patricia pulled Alexander aside to talk to the doctor, leaving Rachel with Lily. The little girl leaned against Rachel, exhausted from crying. Are you going to marry my daddy? Lily asked suddenly. Rachel's heart stopped. What? Brittany at school says when grown-ups kiss and hold hands, they get married. You and Daddy do that. So are you going to marry him and be my new mommy? Rachel felt tears burning her eyes. Lily, I hope you do, Lily continued, innocent and honest in the way only children can be. I asked Mommy in heaven if it was okay and I didn't hear her say no. I think she'd like you. You're nice and you laugh at Daddy's bad jokes like she used to. Rachel couldn't speak. She just held this little girl who'd already lost so much and was ready to love again anyway. How was Rachel supposed to destroy that? How was she supposed to break this child's heart? The doctor came in and confirmed it was a broken wrist. They'd need to set it and put on a cast. Lily could pick the color, pink, Lily declared. No, wait, purple, no, wait, can I have both? How about pink with purple stars? The doctor suggested, and Lily's face lit up despite her pain. Alexander held Lily's good hand while they set the bone, and Rachel held her other side, letting Lily squeeze her hand as hard as she needed. When it was over and Lily was finally sleeping from the pain medication, Alexander collapsed into the waiting room chair next to Rachel.